All right, so here I just want to go over how to approach studying and learning the muscles. And so this is going to build a little bit on what we learned in the skeletal section. All right, so looking at this particular picture, this is some of the muscles. We don't have all of these, but we do have a good portion of these. And remember, you need to look at your list of structures to know and make sure you hit all of those muscles. The muscle names here look kind of like a foreign language, don't they? Pectoralis major, serratus anterior, rectus abdominis, obliquus externus abdominis, tensor fascia lata. Okay, that probably sounds like a foreign language. Well, that's because it is. It's Latin. And if you will learn what the Latin names mean, it makes this much easier. Okay. It's kind of like the muscle names are a shortcut to learning them, where they are at, what they do. Sometimes it's the shape they are. It's all derived from Latin. So here's an example. We're going to look at the adductor muscles, okay? Adduction versus abduction. Adduction, you're putting things together. So think bringing it closer into the body. Abduction, think someone is being abducted, they're being pulled away. So moving away from the body, okay? So we have a group of 3 muscles here. These do the action of adduction, okay? In this case, the femur is going to bend the hip joint and bring the leg towards the midline of the body, okay? So we have first here this, let me find my little pen, this adductor magnus, okay? This great big green one, and you can see there's some of it here as well, so it's underlying all of this here. So it composes this entire area, okay? Magnus means great. Adductor, we already said, adduct, add together, bring in towards the midline of the body, okay? So that's the adductor magnus. It means great or large. It's a large muscle, okay? And then next here, we have the adductor brevis. Well, if you've ever ordered a breve coffee, it's the same meaning. It means short. And so this one here is a little bit shorter. So adductor brevis, all right? Let's see if I can get this to go back, or I can pull up the next one. We're also going to have adductor longus. I'm trying to get the word to come up here for you. Anyway, adductor longus, which is going to be right here. And of course, longus means that it's going to be long. All right. So how do you tell them apart? You tell them apart by their names. Okay. There we go. Adductor longus, and that means long. So one thing you're probably noticing is the verbiage here seems backwards. The phrases feel a bit backwards, okay? So in English, we say red wagon, okay? We use an adjective and then the noun. In pretty much every other languages, and if you've ever learned a foreign language, you really understand this, okay? Everything else, everybody else pretty much is going to be wagon red. Wagon that is red, basically, is kind of what you're saying. So in other languages, it's the other way around, okay? And so that's how Latin is. We would say big red wagon, and it's going to say wagon that's big and red, all right? Except the word that is implied. Wagon, red, and big, okay? So that's really important to remember. All right, so here we have an example. We have the extensor carpi radialis brevis. That sounds like a lot, right? Well, you got to break it down to what do the words mean. Extensor means it is going to extend a part or stretch it out, okay? Carpi, well, what does that sound like? Carpal, so it's talking about the bones of the wrist, okay? Radialis, what does that sound like? Radius, so it means that it is near or at the radius bone of the forearm. And then brevis, we already said, means short. So basically, this is a phrase, more of a sentence for the name, extensor carpi extensor, I keep trying to say that, extensor carpi radialis brevis means short wrist stretcher at the radius. Okay, so it tells you what it does and where it's located. Again, it's almost like a little cheat sheet. Here is another one, the gracilis, okay, or gracilis. You know, people say it a little bit differently. I say gracilis because it helps me remember the word I like to think of, and that's graceful. Okay, so sometimes other aspects are used to describe the muscle, like it's a long, slender muscle. Gracilis means long and slender. Okay, so we have the anterior and posterior portions. Gracilis means slender. So this is a long, slender muscle. All right. I also like to think of the word graceful. Okay. So you can see that gracilis here is going along the inside. It's long and slender and kind of graceful, okay? But it means long and slender. Here is another one that has a really weird name, buckinator. That sounds really odd, but if you see what the word in Latin means, it makes sense. This is also called the trumpeter muscle because it is used, it's the muscle that you used in your cheek to blow the trumpet, okay? And you can see that really shown here in this picture. It's called the trumpeter muscle, and that's the buckinator. So here's another example of shape being used, okay? This is the trapezius, and that means table, so table shaped. I also like to think of it as being a trapezoid, okay? So I think of it being a trapezoid. Okay, so sometimes the location of the muscle's origin and insertion are incorporated into their names. Muscles are going to be attached at 2 points in the body in general. One end is going to be pulled by the muscle to create movement. So the end of the muscle that creates movement is called the insertion. And the fixed end of a muscle is what we call the origin. One way to remember this is going to be HOJI, heart origin joint insertion. I'm trying to get my pen up here. HOJI. That doesn't work for everything. I don't find it works so great for the muscles of the head, okay? But it does work for a lot of the body. So whatever's nearest to the heart, the midline of the body, is where the origin will be. Whatever is nearest to the joint is where the insertion will be. All right, so I'm giving you this chart, and here's some examples here, all right? So rectus means parallel. So the rectus abdominis is going to be abdominal muscles that run parallel, okay? Transverse means perpendicular. So transverse are abdominal muscles that run transverse. And of course, external obliques are going to be on the external portion of the body, or internal will be more internal, okay? More towards the viscera and run at an oblique angle. Some are named by the location of the body part that's covered by the muscles, like the frontal bone. The muscle that covers the frontal bone is the frontalis, okay? And it's actually the frontalis portion of the epicranius. And you also have the occipital bone, remember, at the back of your head, and that's the occipitalis, all right? If it's near the tibia, tibialis anterior, okay? Size, and so we've already talked about these. Here are those for size. We have ways of describing the number of origins, like biceps brachii has 2 origins and triceps brachii has 3, okay? Where it is located at the origin of insertion is also important, like the sternocleidomastoid, and that is going to have an origin on the sternum and the clavicle, but it's going to insert near the mastoid process. So this is why I said learning these features on the bones is really, really helpful, okay? And then here's those about shape. Trapezius, deltoid is triangular shape. Serratus means sawtooth. Orbicularis is going to be circular. We'll have the orbicularis oris, orbicularis oculi, all right? And then sometimes it's also based on the action. These are some different general terms as well. Agonist, synergist, fixator, antagonist. Not quite as important with the naming. This is a good summary here. I've given you some slides on these movements. You do need to understand these movements, okay? Flexion is going to be decreasing the angle between 2 bones. Dorsiflexion is going to be like raising your foot up, okay? So flexion, dorsiflexion. Plantar flexion is going to be the angle between the toes and the bottom of the foot. So plantar is more planting down, okay? So flexion in general, and then 2 types of flexion. Okay, so be sure and read through these and learn these terms. It's really going to help you. So here these drawings are really good. You can see flexion going this way, flexion when you bend the knee, extending, straighten the leg, extension coming back this direction. Here's your flexion and extension of the head. All right, so here this is showing you again flexion and extension of your vertebral column, flexion and extension. Of course, we know we have hyperextension. This is showing you adduction. Remember, adding to the body, abduction is taking away. Circumduction is that circular movement. Rotation is lateral to the right or the left, okay? And so actually you wouldn't want to say right or left. You'd want to say a lateral rotation moving away from the body or medial towards the midline of the body. And so here we have pronation and supination. A really good way to remember that one is I am holding my bowl of soup. So if I'm turning this way, this is supination. If I am pronating, I am pouring it out, okay? And then there you can see your dorsiflexion and your plantar flexion, and your inversion going in towards the body, and eversion going away from the body. All right, and lastly here, you're going to have protraction, you're going out and you're coming backwards, okay? Elevation is going to be lifting up. Depression is going to be going down. It's kind of hard for me to do while I'm talking. And then opposition, think about your opposable thumbs, okay?